Have you ever wondered why sleep feels different under the light of the moon? Maybe you've tossed and turned on a full moon night, or found yourself waking up earlier than usual. It's as though something unseen is affecting your sleep. For centuries, people have linked the phases of the moon to our sleep patterns, suggesting that the moon's glow has a mysterious influence. But could this be just an old superstition, or is there something more to this belief? The idea that the moon affects sleep isn't new. In fact, it's a belief that spans centuries and cultures. Ancient civilizations, from the Egyptians to the Greeks, have documented the connection between the moon and our daily lives, particularly when it comes to sleep. Think about how the moon appears brighter and more powerful during certain phases, especially the full moon. Is it possible that this dramatic change in light has an effect on how deeply we sleep? For centuries, people have also noticed that sleep seems lighter, more disrupted, or more vivid on nights when the moon is full. Even folklore is filled with stories about restless nights during the full moon, stories about people being more likely to experience strange dreams, or even about the moon influencing human behavior. While science is still exploring this connection, the belief that the moon can somehow alter sleep patterns has been deeply rooted in many cultures. The question still remains: could the moon actually affect our sleep? While it sounds like folklore, recent scientific studies suggest there might be something to it. Researchers have been examining how the lunar cycle might influence our circadian rhythm, the internal body clock that regulates sleep-wake cycles. A study published in Current Biology found that during the full moon, people took longer to fall asleep, had poorer sleep quality, and slept for a shorter amount of time. So, is it just the moonlight keeping us awake? Not exactly. Some experts believe the moon's gravitational pull could be affecting our bodies in ways we're still trying to understand. Just as the moon's gravity causes tides to shift in the ocean, it's possible that it affects the water in our bodies, influencing our sleep in ways we haven't yet fully explored. There are also sleep rituals that date back centuries, all tied to the moon. In many ancient traditions, people would track the moon phases as part of their sleep practices, believing that sleep was better or more restorative during certain moon phases. For example, in some cultures, people would sleep more soundly during the waning moon, feeling a sense of rest and calm, while others would seek the bright light of a full moon night to rejuvenate. Today, we may not follow these traditions as closely, but many people still sense that their sleep is influenced by the moon. Some report feeling energized and awake under a full moon, while others can't sleep a wink. Is this just a psychological reaction, or is the moon truly impacting our biology? It's easy to dismiss these observations as mere coincidence, but new research suggests there might be something deeper happening. One intriguing hypothesis is that the moon's light could be messing with the body's production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for regulating sleep. During the brighter phases of the moon, especially the full moon, melatonin production might decrease, making it harder for us to fall into a deep, restful sleep. But why does this matter? If our bodies are truly being affected by the moon's phases in this way, it could mean that the rhythm of our sleep is far more attuned to natural cycles than we ever imagined. The modern world may have disconnected us from these cycles, but deep down, our bodies still respond to the celestial movements above us. So, what happens next? Could this seemingly small factor of the moon be a hidden force that plays a key role in how we sleep and how we feel each day? While much remains unknown, the idea that the moon could influence our sleep isn't just a piece of old folklore. It might be a real, scientific phenomenon that we're just beginning to understand. Imagine if understanding this connection could lead to better sleep, less insomnia, and an improved quality of life. What if the key to a better night's rest has been staring us in the face for centuries? Could adjusting our sleep habits to the lunar cycle help us reconnect with our natural rhythms? As the science behind this moon-sleep connection continues to unfold, we may find ourselves asking, what else might the moon be influencing that we've overlooked for so long? The answers are still out there, waiting to be discovered. And who knows? The next breakthrough in sleep science could come from something as simple and as ancient as the moon's light. The moon has fascinated humanity for millennia. From ancient times, it has held a significant place in various cultures and traditions around the world. Ancient civilizations, such as the Babylonians, Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans, saw the moon as a powerful force in both the heavens and the lives of people. They associated it with gods and deities, believing that its phases and movements had the power to influence everything from the tides to the human psyche. In many cultures, the moon became a symbol of time, fertility, and renewal. Ancient calendars were often based on the lunar cycle, with months named after the different phases of the moon. For instance, in the Chinese lunar calendar, each year is assigned an animal and associated with certain moon phases. Similarly, the Jewish calendar is also lunar, with holidays such as Passover and Rosh Hashanah being timed with the full moon. Throughout history, the moon has not only been a tool for tracking time, but also deeply linked to the spiritual and emotional lives of humans. For example, in many Native American cultures, full moons were used to mark specific seasons, such as the strawberry moon in June, which signified the peak of berry picking. The full moon's significance also found its way into stories, songs, and religious practices, showing just how embedded it was in the cultural fabric of societies across the globe. One of the most well-known effects of the moon on Earth is its influence on tides. The gravitational pull of the moon causes the oceans to bulge slightly, creating high and low tides. This gravitational pull, combined with the sun's influence, creates the rhythmic cycle of tides that we experience daily. The moon's gravitational force is about 2.2 times stronger than the sun's, meaning it has a more direct effect on the water that covers nearly 70% of Earth's surface. The movement of tides plays a significant role in shaping coastal ecosystems. Tidal changes affect the behavior of marine life, influencing feeding patterns, reproduction, and migration. For humans, tides have historically been crucial for navigation, fishing, and even farming. Farmers, particularly those along coastlines, used to follow the moon to determine when to plant crops or harvest them, relying on the predictable nature of the tides to guide their schedules. However, the moon's effects aren't limited to just the oceans. It also influences the Earth's crust. Some scientists suggest that the moon's gravitational pull may slightly distort the Earth itself, causing small deformations in the planet's surface. While these effects are relatively minor in comparison to the oceanic impact, they could play a role in natural occurrences such as earthquakes. Although this remains a debated topic in the scientific community, the moon goes through a cycle of phases every 29.5 days. These phases range from the new moon, when the moon is between Earth and the sun, to the full moon, when Earth is between the moon and the sun. The cycle of waxing and waning has intrigued humans for as long as we've been observing the night sky. But how does this cycle relate to the natural rhythms on Earth, including our own biological rhythms? The moon's phases are intricately linked to the Earth's environment. For instance, when the moon is full, the increased light during the night could disrupt sleep cycles, leading to lighter or shorter sleep. The change in light can affect the release of melatonin, a hormone that regulates sleep, by reducing its production during the bright nights of a full moon. Some researchers suggest that the moon's phases could be aligned with other natural cycles, such as plant growth or animal behavior. Certain species of animals, for instance, are known to be more active during specific phases of the moon, and some even synchronize their reproductive cycles with lunar cycles. This is a subtle but powerful reminder that the moon's presence affects not only the human world but the entire ecosystem. At the core of our sleep patterns lies the circadian rhythm, the internal 24-hour clock that regulates our sleep-wake cycles. This rhythm is primarily influenced by light and dark cycles in our environment. When the body senses darkness, it triggers the production of melatonin, making us feel sleepy. In the morning, as the sun rises, melatonin levels drop, helping us wake up and feel alert. Could the moon play a role in regulating this internal clock? While most research has focused on sunlight as the primary environmental cue for circadian rhythms, it's possible that the moon's light could have a secondary influence. The human body is highly sensitive to changes in light, and the moon's illumination could have an effect, especially during its more intense phases. Like the full moon, there have been reports that people experience different sleep patterns depending on the phase of the moon. Some claim they struggle to sleep more deeply during a full moon, while others report vivid dreams or increased restlessness. This has led some experts to consider the possibility that the moon, although much dimmer than the sun, may still affect our circadian rhythm in a subtle way. While scientific research on the direct influence of the moon on human sleep is still evolving, there are studies and observations that suggest a connection. For example, a 2013 study published in Current Biology found that participants took longer to fall asleep and had lower sleep quality during the full moon, despite no difference in light exposure. In this study, researchers concluded that the moon might be influencing sleep patterns in ways that are not fully understood yet. Another interesting finding comes from observations in psychiatric settings. Some studies have indicated that certain psychological conditions, like mood disorders or psychiatric crises, seem to spike during the full moon. While these studies are often inconclusive and need further investigation, they add to the growing body of evidence that the moon may be more intertwined with human behavior than we think. Historically, folklore and anecdotal accounts have linked the moon to changes in human behavior. Terms like lunacy derive from the word lunar, meaning moon, reflect centuries-old beliefs that the moon can affect mental health. Even today, some people claim that their moods, energy levels, or sleep are altered during different phases of the moon. These widespread beliefs suggest a deeper, possibly universal connection between the moon and human behavior. One of the most widely discussed theories regarding the moon's effect on sleep is the impact of its light, particularly during the full moon phase. When the moon is full, it shines with an intensity that is significantly greater than during the other phases. The bright light, especially in the absence of modern light pollution, can flood our environment and affect the way we sleep. This theory suggests that the increased moonlight might disrupt our ability to fall asleep or reach deeper stages of sleep. Some believe that this disruption occurs because the body's internal clock, or circadian rhythm, is highly sensitive to changes in light levels. The exposure to bright moonlight could trick the brain into thinking it's time to stay awake, rather than allowing the body to naturally wind down and prepare for rest. Numerous anecdotes and personal experiences suggest that people tend to experience poorer sleep or more vivid dreams during the full moon, which may support this theory. But is there scientific evidence to back this up? Some studies suggest that moonlight does indeed play a role in sleep disruption, especially in the days leading up to and during the full moon. However, it remains difficult to conclusively prove that the moon's light directly causes sleep disturbances because other environmental factors, such as room lighting and sleep environment, often play a larger role. In addition to the theory of moonlight disrupting sleep, another theory proposes that the gravitational pull of the moon might have a more subtle yet significant effect on our sleep patterns. The moon's gravitational force is known to influence the Earth's oceans, causing the rise and fall of tides. However, it's not just water that's affected by the moon's gravities. Some scientists believe that the human body, which is made up of over 60% water, could also be influenced by these gravitational shifts. The idea here is that the moon's gravitational pull could influence brain activity, particularly during sleep. Just as the moon pulls on water in the oceans, it could have a similar effect on the water within our bodies, including the cerebrospinal fluid that cushions and protects the brain. Changes in this fluid, whether due to shifts in gravitational force or other factors, could alter the way the brain functions during sleep. This could explain why some individuals report feeling a sense of agitation, restlessness, or difficulty falling asleep during certain phases of the moon. While this theory sounds intriguing, scientific research has yet to provide clear evidence that the moon's gravitational pull directly impacts sleep. The effect, if any, is likely to be subtle, and more studies would be required to fully explore this idea. Beyond physical factors like moonlight and gravity, there's also the psychological influence of the moon to consider. For centuries, various cultures have associated the moon with powerful, sometimes mystical effects on human behavior. The full moon, in particular, has been linked to everything from madness to supernatural occurrences. The word lunacy itself comes from the Latin word luna, meaning moon, and it was once believed that the full moon could drive people to erratic or irrational behavior. These cultural myths and beliefs could be powerful psychological triggers. If people are conditioned to believe that the full moon makes them act differently or experience more vivid dreams, they may begin to feel these effects even if no physical changes are taking place. In other words, the belief in the moon's influence might be enough to trigger physiological responses, making it seem like the moon really is affecting sleep. This could explain why some people claim they sleep worse or have bizarre dreams during a full moon. It's all in the mind. Psychological studies suggest that these belief systems, which are often deeply embedded in culture, can have a real impact on our behavior and perception. If we're convinced that something is going to affect us, our body might react accordingly, whether or not there's any physical cause. This theory suggests that the moon's influence might not be entirely biological but psychological, based on centuries of myths and cultural conditioning. As we've seen, there is a fine line between scientific evidence and cultural beliefs when it comes to the moon's impact on sleep. While some studies have attempted to investigate the link between the moon and sleep, much of the evidence remains anecdotal or inconclusive. For example, the idea that the moon affects our sleep through its light or gravitational pull is intriguing, but the scientific studies, to date, haven't been able to provide clear, consistent findings. Cultural beliefs about the moon, on the other hand, have been passed down for generations and are often deeply ingrained in society. These beliefs, such as the idea that the full moon causes madness or strange behavior, have influenced how people perceive their sleep patterns and overall health. However, these beliefs may not always align with the scientific understanding of how the moon operates. In many cases, these cultural stories have become intertwined with personal experiences, creating a sense of connection between the moon and sleep disturbances that may be based more on psychological influences than biological ones. The challenge, then, is to separate fact from folklore and to understand how these two forces, science and belief, shape our understanding of the moon's effects on sleep. One of the most discussed theories about the moon's impact on sleep is how its light affects melatonin production. Melatonin is a hormone produced by the pineal gland in the brain that helps regulate our sleep-wake cycle. When it's dark outside, the body produces more melatonin, signaling to us that it's time to sleep. Conversely, when light enters the eyes, melatonin production is suppressed, helping us stay awake and alert during a full moon. The intensity of the moonlight might be enough to reduce melatonin levels, especially if it enters our rooms through windows during the night. This reduced melatonin production could make it harder to fall asleep or stay asleep, leading to lighter and more disrupted sleep. For those who are particularly sensitive to light, the moon's brightness could have a noticeable effect. Even though it's much dimmer than sunlight, studies have shown that exposure to light, whether it's from a street lamp, a digital screen, or the moon, can delay sleep onset and interfere with the natural sleep cycle. This idea of moonlight disrupting melatonin production fits within the broader understanding of how light affects sleep. However, more research would be needed to confirm that the moon's light specifically causes these effects. Finally, one of the most compelling theories is the alignment between lunar cycles and human sleep cycles. Our bodies are naturally attuned to a 24-hour cycle, which is why our sleep patterns are typically regular. However, the moon's phases, which cycle every 29.5 days, may also be influencing our sleep on a monthly basis. Some studies suggest that the phases of the moon might be synchronized with the timing of sleep cycles, causing shifts in sleep patterns throughout the month. For example, during the full moon, people may sleep less deeply, while during the new moon, they may experience more restful, uninterrupted sleep. This theory suggests that the moon's phases could potentially serve as a timekeeper for our sleep, just as they have for animals and plants throughout history. However, much of this theory remains speculative, and researchers have yet to determine whether the moon truly has a direct, predictable effect on sleep. What's clear is that the idea is intriguing, and the connection between the lunar cycle and human behavior is worth further exploration. Over the years, various studies have been conducted to explore the moon's potential effects on sleep, but the results have been mixed. One famous study from 2013 found that people had poorer sleep quality and took longer to fall asleep during the full moon, even when other environmental factors were controlled. However, other studies have failed to replicate these findings, leaving the question of whether the moon truly affects sleep open for debate. In 2016, another study found no significant difference in sleep patterns between full moon and new moon phases. The inconsistency of results across studies makes it difficult to draw firm conclusions about the moon's role in sleep disturbances. Theories about the moon's influence on sleep, whether biological, psychological, or cultural, require further exploration and more controlled experiments before any definitive answers can be given. For centuries, the full moon has been associated with disrupted sleep, vivid dreams, and even erratic behavior. While these beliefs have been largely anecdotal, recent scientific studies have begun to explore the potential links between lunar phases and human sleep patterns that the fascination with the moon's potential to affect sleep has spanned centuries. But only in recent decades has science begun to take a closer, more critical look at this phenomenon. The idea that the moon might disrupt our sleep weather through its light, gravitational pull, or even psychological influence has long been a subject of folklore and cultural myth. However, with the advancement of modern scientific methods, researchers have conducted numerous studies to explore whether there is any validity to these ancient beliefs. To understand whether the moon truly affects sleep, we must break down the scientific studies that have been conducted, paying particular attention to the conflicting findings, the role of moonlight exposure, and the effects of lunar phases. By doing so, we can determine whether the moon is having a physiological or psychological effect on us, or if it's all a matter of perception and belief. Several studies have been conducted in recent years to determine if there is a correlation between the phases of the moon and human sleep patterns. However, the results of these studies are often mixed and sometimes contradictory, making it difficult to draw definitive conclusions. One of the earliest and most notable studies was conducted in 2013 and published in Current Biology. The study found that during the full moon, people took longer to fall asleep, had reduced sleep quality, and spent less time in deep sleep. The researchers attributed this disruption to the increased brightness during the full moon, which might have affected melatonin production and sleep onset. However, other studies have failed to replicate these findings. In 2016, a study led by researchers in Switzerland found no statistically significant differences in sleep patterns between full moon and new moon phases. The study's lead author, Dr. Kajoshan, emphasized that while anecdotal reports suggest sleep disruptions during full moons, these changes might be more psychological than physiological. This conclusion adds to the ongoing debate about whether the moon's phases truly affect sleep, or whether people's beliefs in the moon's influence might be clouding their experiences. The inconsistency in findings from these studies indicates a major challenge in determining the moon's role in sleep patterns. Variability in study designs, such as sample sizes, geographical locations, and even the presence of light pollution, could be influencing the results. For example, some studies conducted in areas with high levels of artificial lighting may not be able to accurately measure the effect of moonlight. Additionally, the subjectivity of sleep quality and the difficulty of measuring deeply restful sleep across various populations could also contribute to the conflicting results. One of the most widely discussed theories regarding the moon's impact on sleep is the idea that moonlight exposure, especially during the full moon, affects the quality of sleep. Moonlight is much less intense than sunlight, but it can still be a source of light at night, particularly in areas with little light pollution. Some scientists argue that even this dim light could be enough to disrupt the body's natural sleep cycle, especially for people who are sensitive to light. When we sleep, our bodies follow the circadian rhythm, an internal clock that regulates sleep-wake cycles in response to the natural light-dark cycle. Melatonin, a hormone that promotes sleep, is released by the pineal gland in response to darkness. However, exposure to light, whether from artificial sources, like streetlights, or natural sources, like the moon, can suppress melatonin production, making it harder to fall asleep or stay asleep during the full moon. The amount of light in the environment can be significantly greater than during other moon phases, potentially interfering with melatonin release. This could lead to lighter sleep or increased wakefulness, especially during the later stages of sleep. However, the evidence supporting this theory is not without controversy. While some studies show a relationship between moonlight exposure and poorer sleep quality, Other studies fail to show a clear correlation. Researchers are still uncertain whether moonlight itself is the primary factor, or if other environmental or psychological factors are contributing to the observed sleep disturbances. Beyond moonlight exposure, another critical factor to consider is the lunar cycle itself. The moon's phases: new moon, waxing crescent, first quarter, waxing gibbous, full moon. Waning gibbous, third quarter, and waning crescent may have different effects on sleep patterns, depending on their timing and the individual's sensitivity to these phases. The full moon, in particular, has been the subject of much speculation regarding its impact on sleep, with many people reporting that they experience disrupted sleep or more vivid dreams during this time. Research on the impact of different lunar phases on sleep is still in its early stages, but there are a few key studies that have attempted to correlate sleep patterns with the phases of the moon. One such study, published in Sleep Medicine Reviews, found that people tend to have less sleep during the full moon, and that their sleep is less deep and more fragmented. The study concluded that the full moon's increased light exposure could be one possible explanation, but the researchers also suggested that lunar cycles might align with natural sleep cycles in a way that we don't fully understand yet. Other studies have examined the effects of the new moon, the phase when the moon is not visible from Earth. Some researchers have suggested that during the new moon, people may experience deeper and more restful sleep because the absence of moonlight allows for greater melatonin production. Conversely, the waxing and waning phases of the moon might have more subtle, less noticeable effects, with some individuals experiencing sleep disturbances during the transition between phases, while some studies suggest that sleep patterns may shift according to lunar phases. These findings are not universally accepted. There is still significant debate within the scientific community about whether lunar cycles truly play a role in sleep, or if these changes are due to other unrelated factors. While moonlight is often cited as the most direct cause of sleep disruption, there may be other, more complex physiological mechanisms at play. The moon's gravitational pull, for example, has been shown to influence tides, but could it also affect biological systems in humans? Some theories suggest that the gravitational force exerted by the moon could subtly influence water retention or brain fluid, potentially affecting the sleep cycle in ways that are not fully understood. Although the effect of the moon's gravitational pull on human bodies is not well established, it has been suggested that these small gravitational shifts might alter brain function or the body's sleep regulation. This could manifest as changes in sleep patterns, body temperature regulation, or even emotional states, all of which play a role in how well we sleep. However, these theories remain speculative, and more research is needed to explore the possibility of a direct physiological link between the moon and human sleep. In addition to physical factors, the full moon is often linked to psychological effects that might contribute to sleep disturbances. Many people report experiencing heightened anxiety, stress, or even strange dreams during full moon nights. These psychological effects could stem from a variety of factors, including cultural conditioning, the moon's bright appearance, or even changes in atmospheric pressure that are difficult to measure. One of the most intriguing aspects of the moon's influence on sleep is the psychological factor. Humans have long associated the full moon with strange or irrational behavior. Think of the term lunacy, which comes from the Latin word lunar moon. In many cultures, the full moon is believed to have supernatural properties, often linked to heightened emotions, vivid dreams, or even outbursts of violence. These cultural myths could trigger certain emotional responses in individuals, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy where people expect to have disrupted sleep or experience heightened emotional states during the full moon. Anecdotal evidence suggests that people are more likely to have vivid or bizarre dreams during the full moon, which could disrupt sleep. Psychological studies show that individuals' expectations of the moon's influence can lead to real effects on their mental state and behavior, further complicating the question of whether the moon itself is responsible for sleep disturbances, or if it is the belief in its effects that plays a significant role. When examining the effects of the moon on sleep, it's important to differentiate between individual sleep cycles and general population studies. Individual sleep patterns are influenced by a wide range of factors, including age, lifestyle, environment, and health conditions. For instance, someone who is sensitive to light might find the full moon's brightness more disruptive than someone who sleeps in a completely dark room. Likewise, psychological factors such as stress, anxiety, or belief in the moon's power can also contribute to sleep disturbances in some individuals. General population studies, on the other hand, attempt to examine sleep patterns across a broader group of people. These studies often show mixed results, with some individuals experiencing changes in sleep patterns during the full moon, while others report no noticeable difference. The variability of responses highlights the complexity of sleep and the many factors that can influence it. It also underscores the difficulty of drawing definitive conclusions about the moon's role in sleep disturbances. The idea that the moon disrupts sleep is one of the most widely discussed theories. Many people report experiencing lighter, more fragmented sleep during a full moon. But does science back up these personal anecdotes? Research on this topic has produced mixed results, with some studies suggesting that sleep disturbances are more common during the full moon, while others show no significant differences in sleep patterns. One well-known study, published in Current Biology in 2013, found that participants took longer to fall asleep and had reduced sleep quality during the full moon, even when other factors, such as artificial light, were controlled. This study's findings lend weight to the theory that moonlight itself may play a role in disrupting sleep, as increased exposure to moonlight during the night could interfere with the production of melatonin, a hormone that helps regulate sleep. However, other studies have failed to replicate these findings. A 2016 study conducted in Switzerland found no significant differences in sleep patterns between full moon and new moon phases. In fact, participants reported similar sleep quality regardless of the lunar phase. Some researchers have argued that the connection between the full moon and sleep disruption might be a psychological effect rather than a physiological one. If people believe that the full moon will disrupt their sleep, their expectations might lead to restlessness or poor sleep, even if no physical factors are at play. Despite these conflicting findings, it's clear that for some individuals, sleep disruptions during the full moon are very real. The question remains whether these disruptions are due to moonlight, psychological expectations, or a combination of both. Beyond sleep, there is widespread belief that the moon's phases, particularly the full moon, can influence human behavior. Some individuals report feeling more aggressive, anxious, or restless during certain lunar phases. This theory, rooted in centuries of folklore, is often associated with terms like lunacy, which comes from the Latin word luna, meaning moon. In various cultures, the full moon has been linked to heightened emotional states. For example, Some people report increased irritability or anxiety around the full moon, while others feel an inexplicable urge to stay active or restless. But is there any scientific evidence to support these claims? Some studies suggest that there may be a connection between the full moon and changes in behavior. A 1985 study in psychiatry research found that psychiatric patients in a hospital setting exhibited higher levels of aggression and agitation during the full moon, though the effect was relatively small. Other studies have examined the correlation between the lunar cycle and violent crime rates, suggesting a slight uptick in criminal behavior during the full moon. However, these studies often fail to account for other variables, such as societal factors that could contribute to increased aggression. It's also important to note that much of the research on this subject is based on anecdotal evidence or small-scale studies, and the results are often inconsistent. While some individuals may feel more irritable or anxious during the full moon, it's unclear whether the lunar phases have a direct, measurable effect on mood, or if these behavioral changes are due to cultural conditioning and psychological expectations. If sleep disruptions during the full moon are indeed a real phenomenon, what are the long-term effects of these interruptions on our health and well-being? While occasional sleep disturbances might not have a significant impact, chronic disruption of the sleep cycle can lead to a range of physical and mental health issues. Sleep is essential for maintaining a healthy immune system, regulating mood, and promoting cognitive function. Chronic sleep deprivation or poor quality sleep can lead to problems such as increased stress levels, weakened immune function, difficulty concentrating, and even mood disorders like depression and anxiety. In the long term, sleep disturbances could also contribute to an increased risk of developing chronic conditions such as heart disease and diabetes. If the lunar cycle does, in fact, have a recurring influence on sleep, individuals who are already prone to sleep problems might find that their symptoms worsen during the full moon. For example, people with insomnia, anxiety, or other sleep disorders may find that the bright moonlight or psychological factors associated with the full moon exacerbate their condition. In this case, the moon's influence could act as an additional stressor that affects their sleep quality and overall well-being. However, the long-term effects of sleep disruptions linked to the lunar cycle are not well understood. More research is needed to determine whether the moon's influence on sleep has a significant impact on health, or if the perceived effects are largely psychological. As discussed earlier, the moon has long been associated with changes in human behavior, including fluctuations in mood and emotional states. But how much of this is supported by scientific evidence? Can the phases of the moon actually influence mood and mental health? Some researchers have suggested that sleep disruptions during the full moon could contribute to mood changes. Poor sleep is closely linked to increased irritability, anxiety, and depression. If the full moon causes sleep disruptions for certain individuals, it could potentially lead to negative impacts on mental health. In fact, some studies suggest that people with pre-existing mood disorders might be more susceptible to these effects. The psychological aspects of the full moon may also play a significant role in mood changes. As mentioned earlier, cultural beliefs surrounding the full moon often associated with heightened emotions or irrational behavior. If people expect the full moon to affect their mood, they may be more likely to experience those effects due to the placebo effect or heightened sensitivity. For some, the belief in the moon's power could trigger emotional responses that might not otherwise occur. However, the direct impact of lunar phases on mood is still largely unclear. While some studies report changes in mood during the full moon, others find no significant effects. It's possible that the moon's influence on mood is more pronounced in individuals who are already predisposed to mood disorders, while others may not notice any change at all. Interestingly, humans are not the only creatures affected by the moon. Animals have long been observed to behave differently during various lunar phases, and some scientists believe that the moon's influence on animal behavior could provide insight into its effects on humans. Certain species of animals, such as wolves and birds, are known to be more active during the full moon. Some animals use the increased light to hunt, while others use it as a cue to breed. Marine life is also influenced by the moon's phases, with some species of fish and corals synchronizing their spawning cycles with the lunar cycle. Interestingly, the behavior of animals during the full moon is often much more pronounced than in humans. For example, some species of birds are known to become more aggressive and territorial during full moon nights. Similarly, predators like wolves may hunt more frequently under the bright moonlight, while prey animals may alter their behavior to avoid increased predation. This contrast between human and animal responses to the moon's phases raises interesting questions about the extent to which lunar cycles influence human behavior. While humans have become somewhat disconnected from the natural world due to modern living, animals still rely on the moon to navigate their behavior. This suggests that the moon's influence may be deeply ingrained in our biology, even if we're not fully aware of it. One of the most enduring aspects of the moon's influence on behavior is its cultural significance. For centuries, the full moon has been associated with madness, strange events, and irrational behavior. From the myth of the werewolf to the widespread belief that the full moon causes people to act out of character, the full moon has been a symbol of chaos and transformation in folklore and mythology. In many cultures, the full moon is seen as a time when the boundaries between the earthly and supernatural realms are blurred. This association with madness and irrationality is so deeply ingrained that it has shaped cultural attitudes toward the moon for centuries. Whether in literature, film, or folklore, the full moon is often depicted as a time when people experience heightened emotions, strange behavior, or even supernatural occurrences. While these cultural beliefs are largely symbolic, they reflect the power of the full moon in shaping human perception and behavior. Even today, the full moon remains a source of fascination and fear, with people often attributing unusual events or behaviors to its presence. Whether through folklore, mythology, or personal belief, the moon continues to influence how we view ourselves and the world around us. From ancient civilizations to contemporary societies, the moon has held an undeniable sway over human thought and behavior. In many cultures, the moon is seen as a powerful force, one that can influence everything from farming cycles to emotions and even sleep patterns. Across the world, the full moon in particular is regarded with a mixture of reverence, fear, and fascination. In many Western cultures, the full moon is often associated with strange occurrences, such as increased crime rates, heightened emotions, or unusual behaviors. The term lunacy, which is derived from luna, the Latin word for moon, reflects the belief that the full moon could drive people to madness. This belief persists today, with some individuals insisting that they feel more anxious, restless, or even aggressive during a full moon. In contrast, many indigenous cultures around the world view the moon as a symbol of fertility, wisdom, or spiritual guidance. For example, in Native American traditions, the full moon is often seen as a time for reflection and renewal. Different tribes celebrate the full moon with ceremonies, dances, and rituals. The moon's cycle is also seen as a natural guide for planting crops and marking the seasons. In parts of Africa, the full moon is considered a time of supernatural power, often linked to ancestral spirits or spiritual healing. Rituals and ceremonies are performed under the light of the full moon, with the belief that its energy can strengthen spiritual connections. In the East, particularly in Chinese culture, the full moon is a symbol of family reunion, especially during the Mid-Autumn festival, where families gather to celebrate the harvest under the full moon. This cultural appreciation highlights the moon as a source of harmony rather than a disruptive force. While some cultures celebrate the moon, especially during its full phase, others approach it with caution, fear, or even reverence. In many Western cultures, the full moon is often associated with a sense of foreboding, perhaps due to centuries of folklore and superstition. Stories of werewolves, witches, and bizarre occurrences have given the full moon an air of mystery and danger. For instance, in medieval Europe, it was commonly believed that the full moon could transform people into werewolves. The idea that the full moon could trigger madness or unpredictable behavior was so ingrained that many towns would observe peculiar behaviors and increased crime rates during its occurrence. In contrast, many other cultures view the full moon as a time of celebration, unity, and even divine power. In Thailand, the full moon is marked by the Yi Peng festival, during which thousands of lanterns are released into the sky as a way to honor Buddha and ask for blessings. Similarly, in India, the full moon is celebrated during the Karva Chauth festival, when married women fast and pray for the well-being of their husbands, often doing so under the light of the full moon. In some indigenous cultures, such as those in South America, the full moon represents a powerful force of nature that connects the people with their ancestors. These celebrations often involve dance, music, and other rituals to honor the moon and its cyclical influence on the earth. The sharp contrast between fear and celebration highlights how cultural attitudes toward the full moon vary, and how these perceptions may influence individual beliefs and experiences regarding its effect on sleep and behavior. Despite mixed scientific evidence, many individuals swear by the moon's ability to disrupt their sleep. Personal accounts from people who believe they experience poor sleep, strange dreams, or even heightened energy during a full moon continue to circulate in modern society. These stories often reflect a deep cultural association with the moon's power. One common claim is that people have more vivid, unusual, or even disturbing dreams during a full moon. A study of personal anecdotes found that many individuals report having more lucid dreams or nightmares around this time. For some, the effect is so pronounced that they adjust their sleep environment by using blackout curtains or taking sleep aids to counteract the full moon's effects. Others report increased restlessness or insomnia during the full moon. A survey of people living in rural areas with less light pollution found that many reported experiencing disturbed sleep when the full moon illuminated the night sky. These accounts, while subjective, suggest that there is a significant portion of the population who believe that the moon's phases are influencing their sleep. In contrast, there are others who feel energized by the full moon, claiming that it helps them stay awake and productive throughout the night. Some even take advantage of the moon's light for nighttime activities, like stargazing or walking, and feel more alert during these times. This raises the question of whether the perceived effects of the moon are rooted in personal belief, or if they have a more objective basis. Throughout history, Myths and stories about the moon have shaped how people perceive its influence on behavior. From the terrifying werewolves of folklore to tales of witches and supernatural beings, the full moon has been associated with chaos and change. One of the most enduring myths is the idea that the full moon causes madness or lunacy. This belief, rooted in the Latin word lunar moon, suggests that the full moon can trigger erratic or irrational behavior. While these myths are largely symbolic, they have left an imprint on modern culture. Even today, people often associate strange events or behavior with the presence of a full moon. Whether it's a police officer noticing an uptick in crime or a person experiencing unusual dreams, the idea that the full moon causes people to act irrationally has become so ingrained in popular culture that it is often depicted in films, television shows, and books. Werewolves, witches, and other supernatural beings are frequently shown to undergo transformations or exhibit abnormal behavior during the full moon. These depictions reinforce the belief that the full moon holds power over human actions. These stories and myths continue to shape modern beliefs about the moon. People may not believe in werewolves, but they might still attribute their anxiety, aggression, or restlessness to the full moon. In this way, popular stories about the moon persist in influencing individual behavior and societal attitudes, while the general public remains divided on the issue of the moon's effects on sleep and behavior. Scientists take a more skeptical view. For years, researchers have sought to understand whether the moon truly has a measurable impact on human sleep, mental health, or behavior. The general consensus in the scientific community is that the evidence supporting a direct link between the moon's phases and human behavior is minimal. Scientists argue that the moon's influence on sleep is likely due to environmental factors like increased moonlight or psychological factors such as cultural conditioning. Many studies have failed to show a significant correlation between the full moon and sleep disruptions, suggesting that the effects may be psychological rather than physiological. This view contrasts sharply with the beliefs of many people, who still hold strong convictions about the moon's impact. Despite the lack of strong scientific evidence, the belief in the moon's power persists in many cultures, particularly in rural areas where folklore and tradition play a significant role in everyday life. These contrasting views, scientific skepticism versus popular belief, highlight the ongoing tension between empirical research and cultural perception. While the more serious side of the moon's influence has been the subject of many studies and discussions, there are also humorous and intriguing personal accounts of how people react to lunar sleep disturbances. For instance, some individuals have taken to wearing sleep masks, covering their windows with thick curtains, or even attempting to shield themselves from the moon by placing crystals or herbs under their pillows. Others have embraced the idea of the full moon as a time for creativity or spiritual growth. People in certain communities gather for full moon rituals, meditation, or stargazing, often claiming that the energy of the moon makes them feel more alive or more connected to the universe. These lighter, more positive reactions show how the moon's influence can be seen in many different ways, ranging from serious concerns about sleep quality to fun, symbolic practices that celebrate its beauty and power. Throughout this exploration of the moon's influence on sleep, we've delved into the theories, research, and cultural perspectives that have shaped our understanding of this celestial body's effect on our lives. From the very beginning, we've encountered a wide range of ideas, some grounded in scientific study, others based on centuries of cultural belief. At the heart of it all is the question: does the moon really affect sleep? Or are the disruptions people experience merely a result of myths, folklore, and expectation? We've examined several key theories that suggest the moon could impact sleep. Some researchers argue that the moon's light, particularly during the full moon, disrupts our circadian rhythms, reducing melatonin production and causing lighter sleep. Others propose that the moon's gravitational pull, while subtle, could influence brain activity and sleep quality. In contrast, some psychologists point to the psychological effects how centuries of cultural beliefs about the moon might trigger real changes in mood and behavior, even if there's no direct biological cause. The research on this topic remains inconclusive. While some studies support the idea that the full moon can cause sleep disruptions, others fail to replicate these findings. The mixed results raise a broader question about how much of the moon's effects are physiological, and how much are psychological or cultural. Nonetheless, the consequences of these potential disruptions are significant. Sleep disturbances linked to the moon could impact mood, mental health, and even long-term physical health, especially if people experience ongoing poor sleep due to the lunar cycle. Despite conflicting opinions and incomplete data, we continue to feel the moon's presence in our lives, often through our sleep, dreams, and emotions. This persistent connection between the moon and our biological rhythms raises important questions about the depth of its influence and whether we truly understand it fully. The moon's ability to captivate us is rooted in both its physical presence in the night sky and the symbolic meanings we have attached to it throughout history. From ancient mythologies to modern science, the moon has always been a source of wonder, awe, and, at times, fear. Its consistent phases provide a natural rhythm that humans have relied upon for timekeeping and agricultural practices. Yet, despite our extensive study of the moon, there is still so much we don't understand about how it affects us. What makes the moon so mystifying is its constant yet elusive nature. We can observe its phases and predict its movements with precision, but its deeper connection to our lives remains a mystery. Does it truly affect us, or is it simply a product of the stories we tell ourselves? Why do so many people across cultures and centuries report similar experiences of restlessness, strange dreams, or heightened emotions during certain phases of the moon? In many ways, the moon represents the unknown. It's a powerful symbol of mystery and change, something we look to for guidance or explanation, but that remains stubbornly out of reach. We measure its distance, we track its phases, yet we still can't say with certainty what effect it has on us, if any. This uncertainty adds to its allure, encouraging continued exploration and reflection. Perhaps it's this ambiguity that makes the moon so compelling, as it remains a symbol of something both known and unknown, scientific and mystical. As much as we have learned about the moon, its effects on sleep and behavior remain elusive. Science continues to study the moon's influence, yet the results are often inconclusive or conflicting. The subtle effects of moonlight, the potential influence of gravitational forces, and the power of cultural belief all intertwine, making it difficult to pinpoint exactly how the moon affects our bodies and minds. In many ways, the moon's influence on sleep may remain an enduring mystery. While we have a solid understanding of how light, circadian rhythms, and sleep cycles work, the moon's potential influence is complex, involving not just the physical world, but also deeply ingrained psychological and cultural factors. The idea that the moon could have a profound impact on human sleep is fascinating, but whether we will ever fully understand this connection remains uncertain. It's possible that future research, perhaps involving more refined technologies or a better understanding of the physiological effects of light on sleep, could shed more light on this question. However, given the intricate relationship between physical, psychological, and cultural factors, it's also possible that the moon's true influence will remain something that's felt more than understood, an experience we associate with change, dreams, and mystery. Ultimately, the enduring nature of the moon's mystery may be what keeps us searching for answers. We want to know whether the moon truly affects us, or if our experiences are simply a product of ancient beliefs and modern expectations. Regardless of the outcome, the moon will continue to shape how we experience the world around us, from our sleep patterns to our emotions. As we look back on the theories, research, and cultural beliefs about the moon's influence on sleep, we must ask ourselves, is the moon simply a catalyst for our imagination? Or is there something deeper at play that we still don't fully understand? Perhaps it is both. The moon's power lies not only in its physical effects on Earth, but also in its ability to ignite our imaginations, prompting us to question, to wonder, and to explore the boundaries of science and myth. The possibility that the moon has an impact on our sleep could be just the tip of the iceberg. Perhaps we are only beginning to scratch the surface of a deeper connection between the cosmos and human behavior. Whether or not we ever fully understand this connection, the moon will continue to spark our curiosity, guiding us toward new questions and insights. So, as we conclude our exploration, we leave you with this thought. Could the moon be a mere reflection of our collective imagination? Or is there something truly cosmic happening that we are yet to comprehend? Perhaps, in time, we will discover the answers that could change the way we see the moon and perhaps even ourselves. Now, we'd love to hear from you. Do you believe that the moon affects your sleep? Have you noticed any changes in your behavior or emotions during certain lunar phases? Whether you've had vivid dreams during a full moon or found yourself restless on a waxing crescent, your experiences can help paint a fuller picture of how the moon influences us. Share your personal stories with us. Do you think the moon truly impacts your sleep, or do you think it's all in the mind? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue the conversation about this fascinating, enduring mystery.